Hi, welcome to the live stream. My name's Jeff Harmon. I am a co-founder at Angel Studios, and I'm the Chief Content Officer at Angel Studios. So today we are welcoming a bunch of special guests, and we're going to do a live Q&A where you can ask anything you want as an audience. We have Tim Ballard, and then we have Alan Smith, who's the director of Saving Innocence. We have Jessica Muniz, and we have Tim Nelson, who is the CEO of Hope for Justice, and Dr. Laura Pinkston, who is a consultant and an anti-trafficking expert. All of these guests are anti-trafficking experts. I want to start out. We are going to, if each one of you could just take like 20 seconds and introduce who you are and what you do in this space.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Alan Smith. I'm the executive director of an anti-trafficking agency based in Los Angeles called Saving Innocence.
I'm Jessica Munoz. I'm the CEO and founder of Ho'ola Nakua and Pearl Haven, and I'm also a board-certified clinical nurse practitioner.
I'm the CEO of a charity called Hope for Justice, which was founded from the UK and now operating across 7 countries internationally, looking to rescue and restore victims of all crimes of modern slavery and
I am an academic and studied human trafficking in the Southeast Asia region while I was living there, and specifically focus on economic opportunities for survivors.
Okay, great. So where we're going to start here is while the questions are coming in from the audience, which we'll get to in just a bit, I'm going to start out with a question of my own. And regarding the movie Sound of Freedom, everybody here has seen it. Tim lived a good chunk of it, at least the parts that are for sure real versus the dramatized parts. And what did the movie get right? What's your favorite part? What did it get right? And then later we're going to follow up with the second question about what do you feel like the movie maybe got wrong, or what elements would you want to clarify? And let's go ahead and start with Tim Ballard. You go ahead and begin.
Sure. Well, to answer that question, we start with the process of what happened. This was a real operation that happened on October 11, 2014. The press, the same press that's now trying to call it QAnon or whatever, gave it glowing reports when this operation happened. It was a layover from an operation I was working as a special agent with the U.S. government. And then the producers came and they wanted to tell the story. And I couldn't let them tell a lot of the pieces of the story. They also learned about other stories. For example, the little boy at the port of entry and his sister. That's a very real story as well, but it didn't lead to Colombia. We've been clear on this. I think it would have been a better movie, frankly, if we could have followed the real chain of events, which led those children into a child sex exploitation material studio in San Bernardino, California. That's where those 2 kids actually were, along with 11 others. But I didn't want to go because there was too much detail that might have led to the real victims. So they connected basically 3 different operations and merged them together. And I've been clear about the fact that Jim Caviezel makes me look way more badass than I am in the last 15 minutes. So with that, pieces that are important in terms of fighting human trafficking, it's interesting because it's based on a true story. There's been a lot of criticism from people who I even respect, saying, well, you shouldn't tell a story that only represents like 10% of those types of cases. And I think this is a great opportunity to point that out. However, I would challenge those critics to tell those 54, well, really it was 120 plus women and children, that their story is not worth telling. And so, you can't discredit their story just because it represents only 10% of that type of trafficking. I always say this: human trafficking, modern day slavery has different faces in different places.
Okay, let's jump to, thank you, Tim. We'll get back to you in a little bit. That was a wonderful answer. Alan Smith, will you answer the question? What was your favorite part? What did the movie get right? And what would you want to add context to?
Well, I think what the movie got incredibly right is that it has forced a national conversation like never before. We are now having conversations, and we're getting inundated all the time with people wanting to know what we think about the movie and what about trafficking. And it's forcing a question because the movie is specifically on Tim's early days there, and it was specifically an international case. It begs the question: well, what's it look like here in our country? And is it different? Is it the same? And so I don't know that I can add what's right about the movie itself. That's Tim's life. I'll let him be the expert on all that. But what the movie did right, big picture, is it's creating this important conversation. And I'm grateful for that. And it's proven to Hollywood.
Go ahead.
One sentence. It's just proven to Hollywood that a movie on trafficking, a well done movie on trafficking, is commercially viable. And so I'm looking forward to the next movie and the one after that.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Thank you, Alan. I just saw a report this morning that the amount of exposure on this movie was like 4 billion impressions or something across all media sources. I mean, it's just an insane amount of exposure, and there are conversations flying everywhere. There are crazy things flying everywhere. There are great things flying everywhere. So what would you say could use a little more context?
Well, I think what's begging the question in my case, because I'm based in Los Angeles and our work is in the United States, and so a little more context, again, for movie number 2 or movie number 3 or the next documentary or whatever it might be, is what does it look like here? Our boots on the ground are in Los Angeles, and we do training consulting, but what does it look like here? And so that's the context that's yet to be covered on a large scale.
Great. Wonderful. All right, Jessica, let's step to you.
Yeah, so I've been in this work over 15 years and really started my work on my own, coming from an emergency room setting. And so I've been a part of both the operations side and the recovery side. And I think the movie does an incredible job at capturing the passion and the bravery that it takes to do this work, which I think often gets forgotten. I also think that the film, everyone that I have talked to and who's seen it, and even myself, I just cried through the whole thing. And I've been in this a long time. But I think that it captures the heart of what it takes to defend the most vulnerable and the weak. And I think one of the things that we could do, obviously I'm based in the US, but have done international work before, is that there is a huge need to elevate the conversation around aftercare and what does comprehensive aftercare look like, especially in the US.
Wonderful. Okay, thank you, Jessica. Tim Nilsson, let's get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I would resonate with what has been said so far about what the film does well, but I would go one step further. You know, when you're gripped by this subject, by this issue, it's not something you can ever shake. And I think in telling Tim's story, you fully feel that sense of, I can't ever let this go. I've seen it now. It's my responsibility. I need to do something to deal with this. And, you know, that bit of having to have a really soft heart, almost like a heart like a baby, but you need to have skin like a rhino to survive what's required when you're dealing with such difficult cases, such horrendous things being done to children. And I think that what the film has done is it has amplified what is happening on the ground. The problem a lot of organizations face in this area is that there isn't a constructive conversation going on an international basis. And I think this is almost lit in a touch paper for a fire in this issue, that we're now starting much greater conversations with people at both a national and a local level because of this. And if I was to go into it and say, are there areas that, I'd love, like Alan said, movie 2, movie 3 to look further into, I think for me it would be, what are the root causes of what's going on? We have teams of specialist investigators that go out and try and find individuals. But what we're finding is around issues of disrupted childhoods, addiction, poverty, that are the precursors to something happening on the ground. And that, for me, the bit that I would like to see more of is maybe not as much on the kidnap and the locks aspect of it, but more going into the reality of vulnerable youth and what's fueling this. If we talk about it from our US perspective, I think something in the region of 1 in 14 men will use a prostitute. Somewhere in that region, between 1 in 10, 1 in 14 men will use a prostitute within their lifetime. And it fuels an industry, whether you're pro using prostitutes or not, it fuels an industry that there aren't the number of women who want to go into it to supply those individual men. And that's where the bit I'd love there to be a conversation about, because until we stop this, until we bring prevention in, all we're doing is going downstream and rescuing people out of the water. We need to go back upstream and find out more about why is this happening.
Yeah, I love this. And I mean, I don't love it. I cannot believe you said 1 to 10 and 1 in 14 in just the US?
In the US, yeah. The statistics
men.
do go higher. And there was one recent survey said that 14% of the US male population had used a prostitute at some form and time in their lives. And those figures are not represented anywhere nationally. But if you understand that is what is the driver behind this. And it could be, we're talking US, our teams are working across 7 countries, and you can see it in every country, the same problem, a demand that then traffickers use the reality of what the demand gives to fuel profits for themselves. They look to try and steal these children. And that's where I'm saying that what the film does, it's raising a conversation now of, for me personally, I don't think any woman should ever be sold.
Dr. Lauren, would you go ahead and give us what did the movie get right and what did it get wrong? I mean, with context and things, your
Sure.
quick version of that.
So let me start by saying,
too, I don't care.
I'm not going to be mean today. I want to start actually with a lot of grace to say that my field is in the realm of community psychology and community development. And with every social problem that we seek to solve, we end up creating another problem, whether that is intended or unintended. There's always a byproduct, right? I shared on a live stream with you guys last week when we open up international adoption, the number of orphans in a certain country goes up, and there are a lot of opportunistic individuals out there who do take advantage of charity, and so lots of grace for that. Let me start there. I am going to share that my favorite part of the film was the nod to the Colombian police force that was a part of the rescue experience on the island. And all too often, we share stories from our own experience, which is natural and is very compelling. But just living, long-term overseas, I have just found some very incredible people in law enforcement that are going against their own cultural norms to try and protect children. And so I appreciated that the police officers were given that nod in the movie.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Your second piece.
And there are rogue organizations, absolutely, and that came out, in my dissertation research too. Just the challenges that can cause on the field, and a lot of that starts with great intentions, but our intentions have to continue to grow and develop. Thank goodness I'm not who I was 10 years ago, and where human trafficking was in 2014 is not where it is now. And so, unfortunately, viewers of the film are learning and watching even some outdated practices, and so. If we're going to expand this narrative and share what could be broadened and better understood by viewers, one thing I would love to see is just a little bit of cross-cultural nuance in what leads to the economic pressure that would put someone in a position where their children are at risk, bringing that to the States as well. 60% of what we believe to be human trafficking victims, especially for sex in the United States, are coming out of our foster care system. And so it's
what
challenging.
Percentage? 60% of, okay, say that stat one more time.
Sex trafficking victims in the United States. There is a statistic that that shares that 60% of those individuals are coming out of our foster care system.
Holy. Okay. All right. Another crazy stat. I didn't know. These are, I mean, this is the kind of stuff we're hoping for this conversation.
Sure. And if I,
It's,
yeah, and if I can
you're saying
just,
they're not kidnapped, they're just coming out of foster
right.
care.
And the compelling stories make it to the big screen, right? And that's for
Yeah.
a good
That's
reason.
natural,
And again,
right?
of course. But what we have to be careful about is believing a narrative as a viewer that this one isolated incident is the norm. And what I am fielding constantly are questions from parents who are saying, how do I protect my children? How do I protect my children? And it's a natural question, but
Yep.
I hope that we can round out this narrative to say, look, there are factors that lead to risk factors that lead to this happening.